Hi everyone, today we're going to be looking at Unseen Prose, which is a common GCSE topic that you'll come across no matter what board you're doing. But today in particular, I'm going to be looking at the AQA English language paper with a focus on question 4, which is the hardest, the one with the highest marks. So let's get straight in. So starting off with an example question. So here we go. Focus this part of your answer on the whole text. A student, having read this text, said, "The writer is successful in creating a detailed and interesting scene for the reader. It is like watching a film of what is happening." And the question they're asking you is, to what extent do you agree? And that is actually just the general format of any question 4 that you'll get in the AQA English language question. And I just wanted to start off with an example so you guys know what kind of question style we're looking at. And then on the left there, you can see that these questions are always worth 20 marks. And with the way that the timing is for this paper, it does mean that you're only going to have about 20 minutes to answer. So it's basically like a minute per mark. So you want to make every minute count. And I definitely want to point out this bottom section here. You don't want to ignore this because it's literally them telling you the mark scheme, which we will talk about in a bit. So it says, write about your own impressions of the scene, evaluate how the writer has created these impressions, and support your opinions with quotations from the text. So things that I would highlight here, the examiner wants to know your opinion. They want you to be able to evaluate what the writer is saying and how they're saying it. And obviously the most important thing, which hopefully you should know by now, is that quotations are so important when it comes to answering any question in the English language paper, let alone question 4. So as I said that we would look at the mark scheme, I like to start to look at the mark scheme before we start thinking about how to answer the question. So as I said, it's 20 marks in total. And I hope that you guys are aiming for the top level. So I put the top 2 levels here. So we'll start off with getting 11 to 15 marks. So in terms of content, what they're looking for in the 11 to 15 marks section is a clearly explained response to the statement that discusses the effects of the writer's choices. So they want something that's clear, and they want it to be an explanation, not just a description. And obviously they don't want you to just talk about the writer's choices themselves, which is what I think a lot of students end up doing, but they want you to look at the effects of the writer's choices. So what's the point in them writing in that way? What's the point in them describing the character that way, and so on? In terms of how you convey your point, they want your opinions to be clearly expressed. Again, the word clear is used, and mostly supported with apt quotations. As I said, quotations are important. And let's look at the most important band, which is the top band, and how you get 16 to 20 marks. They don't want it to just be a clear explanation. They want it to be in depth, and they want it to be personal, which is what I touched on before. They really want it to be you showing your opinion. And then it says, in response to the statement, detailed analysis of the writer's choices. So not just a simple sentence on this technique makes the reader feel like this, but they want a detailed analysis. And how does it do that? And in terms of conveying your point, opinions are convincingly explained and fully supported with relevant, useful quotations. So not just an explanation, but a convincing one. You know, your arguments need to be strong, your points need to be strong, and obviously a really good way to make them strong, at least for a start, is to have a really good quotation. So today in particular, we will be thinking about quotes and how you can analyze them. So just before we look at an extract, here's some things that you might want to think about when you first approach any text, any unseen prose that you see in an examination. It's just something that I think you should always have in the back of your mind. There's definitely no time in the exam to note down like bullet points for each of these, but I just want it to be in the back of your mind. So the meaning of the text, do you even understand what is going on? Can you give me a one-line summary of the text? The setting, not always relevant. Most of the time there is some sort of setting that's described, so definitely keep that in mind. Character, if there is a character, there should be in most ones. Tone and mood. What's the tone of the text? What's the mood of the text? Is it a tense text, or is it just like a happy one, or carefree, or is it quite melancholic? And the way that you can deduce the tone and mood is obviously by looking at the imagery and language. Imagery and language is one that you definitely cannot leave out. So that's techniques like alliteration or similes, metaphors, and so on. And finally, structure. Structure in the sense of how the whole text is structured, how the whole extract is structured, but also even sentence structure, like the use of long sentences, the use of short sentences, and the effect that they have. I'd say if you're pushing for that top band, you definitely want to cover these three at some point in your text. This one is, I'd say, for any band, you should be commenting on imagery and language, but tone and mood will definitely push you up into the tone, mood, and structure will push you up into the higher bands. So have a look at this extract from the novel 1984 by George Orwell, and it's taken from part 1, chapter 1, and I'm not going to read this out to you, so feel free to pause the video now and just have a quick read of the extract. And now I'm just going to imagine that you have read it, and this is the question that you're asked. So we're going straight to question 4. Obviously, you would have a question 1 to 3, which would have helped you to get familiar with the text. But as I said, question 4 is the one that students struggle with the most, so we're going straight in with the hard one. So here's your question. It says, focus this part of your answer on the second half, from line 20 to the end. A student, having read this section of the text, said, the writer skillfully conveys the bleakness of the flat and the street outside. It is as if you are actually in Winston's apartment looking out of the window with him. To what extent do you agree? And again, please note that it's got the same 3 points that you definitely have to include. So again, feel free to pause now again and kind of look at that question, think about what they want you to do, and if you want, you can like rewind a bit, or I can go back a bit as well, for you to have a look at this extract again and come up with some quotes of your own which you might use. And once you've done that, or if not, and you'd rather you go straight onto the quotes that I've chosen here, we can do. So here we go. Here's some useful quotes that I thought of which would help you answer this question. And I'd just like to point out that I'm assuming here that you do agree with the statement. I think most people would say they do agree. It's completely fine if you disagree, as long as you back up your point. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to assume that we do agree, at least to a large extent. Okay. Lovely. Right. So, I don't know what the laser point is doing there, sorry. Right, so the first quotation I've picked out is, the instrument, the telescreen it was called, could be dimmed, but there was no way of shutting it off completely. So, some things that I picked up in this quote, which I thought were really effective, was probably that last section of the quote itself, where it says, no way of shutting it off completely. Like, in particular, the phrase no way, it kind of gives you kind of like a restrictive tone. Hopefully you can agree with me there. Like, it's not normal for something for you to not have the power to turn something off completely, right? So you get that air of restrictiveness or of unease or discomfort or something along those lines. Okay, so that's an example how you could analyse that quote. The next quote, even through the shut window pane, the world looked cold. So I really like this quote. I think it's quite, the way the writers worded it here is that the world looked cold, and that phrase looked cold. So I'm sure you'd agree that look down, sorry. I'm sure you'd agree that the adjective cold is one that's usually associated with physical feeling, right? But here it's talking about something that you can see. So that just emphasizes how dreary and how dull it was outside. And I hope you see how all these, the ways that I'm analysing it, it all links back to the question, because I'm linking it back to this adjective of the bleakness. If you remember the question. Okay, sorry, it's not letting me go back, but the question was, the writer accurately conveys the bleakness of the flat in the street. So that is why I'm picking words, adjectives like this, to show that I'm linking it back to the question, which is another thing which is really, really important to do. And then another nice, simple, short quote. There seemed to be no colour in anything. I'm sure that's quite an easy one to analyse. You know, colour is associated with happiness and things being bright. But again, the no colour kind of makes you feel like there's no hope, I'd say. And that, again, is really effective for the reader. So the next quote is, "The black mustachioed face gazed down from every commanding corner." I really like this because I think you can pick up on a lot of words here. So the fact that he gazed down, so the direction of his gaze, when someone's looking down on you, obviously that's also used as a metaphor for when someone's looking down on you, means they disapprove of you, right? So it makes you think that this person is judging you or being critical of you. I'll put that in there, judging or critical. It just makes you feel like really small. And then it says from every commanding corner. So the word every, like, it suggests that there's no escape. There's no freedom. The word commanding, I don't even need to analyze that for you guys to understand, you know, it has connotations in the word itself. And then the word corner as well. You'd expect a corner to be, it's kind of associated with somewhere where no one can kind of see you. It's where you go to hide. But the fact that he's looking down on you from every corner, again, that atmosphere of unease and discomfort is portrayed. Next quote is, "Down at street level, another poster, torn at one corner, flapped fitfully in the wind." Again, what I really like here is the alliteration of flapping fitfully in the wind. And what I also like how you can literally picture that poster. The writers just described it so accurately. You can picture that exact poster being torn at the corner, and like, you know, how it's like just trying to get away from the wall, but it's also feels like it's clinging on for dear life at the same time. So again, it gives that, for me, it gives you that sense of no hope, because it's clinging on that poster where it says Big Brother is watching you. If you read the extract, the fact that poster is clinging onto the wall, it doesn't want to let go. And again, that restrictive atmosphere. And then the final quote I've chosen is, "In the far distance, a helicopter skimmed down between the roofs, hovered for an instant like a blue bottle." So if you remember this quote about there seeming to be no colour in anything, there's this one little thing here that's mentioned to have colour. But when you see what they've described, it's describing a helicopter. And if you look back at the extract, the helicopter is the thought police. It's the police who are like snooping in at people's windows. So again, there's no freedom. There's no freedom. There's no escape. So yeah, I hope that's given you like a start of how you can first view an unseen prose, and then how you can slowly pick out quotations and then analyze those quotations, and most importantly, link it back to the question. The question here being, the writer accurately conveys the bleakness of the flat in the street. And I hope that you can see how I've done that through choosing, firstly, really good quotations, which quite frankly made it pretty easy for us to, you know, like to dissect and to delve into. Thank you very much for watching.